Before Clint Eastwood became a Hollywood icon, a director and star revered for his gritty realism and no-nonsense storytelling, there was one man who shaped his cinematic vision: Don Siegel. From police thrillers to psychological dramas, their collaborations not only defined Eastwood's on-screen persona, but also forged his future as a director. Don Siegel liked doing things his own way. Starting out as an editor's assistant at Warner's in the 1930s, he rose up to become the studio's most prominent montage directors, contributing to such iconic films as Casablanca. He went on to direct Wright in Cell Block 11, widely considered to be one of the best prison movies ever made, as well as taking the helm of the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. These B-movies taught Siegel how to get the most out of the resources that he had, which is why later on in his career, his films were completed under budget, without any of the fuss or drama that has bogged down many a Hollywood production.
Put your pants on, Chief.
By the time Eastwood discovered Siegel in 1968, the director had already worked with the likes of Steve McQueen, Lee Marvin, Elvis Presley, Richard Widmark, and Henry Fonda. Eastwood was coming off his enormously successful collaboration with Sergio Leone on the Dollars trilogy and was looking to really break into the Hollywood elite. The first collaboration between Eastwood and Siegel came with Coogan's Bluff, a neo-western that took Eastwood's laconic gunslinger persona and placed it in the gritty streets of New York.
I didn't know Don, so I went and looked at his films and kind of researched him, and he did the same with me, I guess. I liked him very right away. I felt he was seemingly kind of a gruff character on the surface, but underneath he was a sensitive man who had some good tastes and some good ideas in films.
You need a bigger target?
There ain't none in this county, baby.
When I assign a deputy to a roadblock, I expect to find him there when I come back.
Koogan is an Arizona deputy sheriff who was sent to New York to collect a violent prisoner, Ringerman, played by Don Stroud. A few years later, Don Stroud would also pop up in Joe Kidd.
Be in front of my desk in 1 hour. Don't bother to stand up and salute.
It's a classic fish out of water story, with Eastwood standing out like a sore thumb, dressed in full cowboy attire, while conducting his investigations in the hippie underbelly of New York.
Tex, you're getting on my nerves. Say, what gives with you people out there? Too much sun?
A few years later, Arnold Schwarzenegger's action flick Red Heat would use these same themes when he played a Russian police officer.
Did you come to take me back, cowboy? Huh?
This kid's got wild vibes.
Coogan's attempt to escort the prisoner Ringerman, however, goes south very quickly, as he is attacked by his accomplices, allowing Ringerman to escape again.
This isn't the OK Corral around here. This is the city of New York. We don't like it when some two-for-a-nickel cowboy thinks he can bend it out of shape.
Siegel sets the tone for what would be Eastwood's classic tough guy persona for the rest of the 70s. A character who resents authority and shoots and punches first. Even Lala Schifrin's score sounds like an audition for his composition for Dirty Harry.
Hey, Charlie.
Coogan's Bluff would also introduce him to the character actor Albert Popwell, who would pop up in all but one of the Dirty Harry movies. Coogan's Bluff is a tight and entertaining drama, infusing plenty of comedy and taut action. And its success also led to Dennis Weaver's spin-off hit show, McCloud.
Let's relax.
Eastwood around this time had also completed his wartime action classic, Where Eagles Dare, where he got to know his co-star Richard Burton and his wife, Elizabeth Taylor, quite well. Taylor was all set to play the lead in the western Two Mules for Sister Sara in Siegel and Eastwood's next venture, but pulled out at the last minute to be replaced by Shirley MacLaine. MacLaine, to put it mildly, wasn't exactly ideal casting to play the Mexican nun, so the role had to be rewritten. McClane would also play a nun in Cannibal Run 2, many years later, opposite Burt Reynolds. The film is set in Mexico during the French intervention of the late 1800s. Eastwood's character Hogan is traveling through the desert when he rescues a woman from being raped by 3 bandits. To his surprise, she is Sister Sara,
Jesus Christ.
a sharp-witted, whiskey-drinking nun with an unusual toughness.
I was raising money for the Mexican army, and they found out. I had to run in the middle of the night. Please.
She convinces Hogan to escort her to a group of Mexican revolutionaries fighting against the French army.
I'd sure as hell like to know what she did before she became a nun.
Siegel was not someone to be trifled with, whoever you were, and he and McClane butted heads from the beginning, from her frequent late appearances on set to her apparent overindulgences in the evening. She made herself quite unpopular with the crew, and Siegel let her know it.
I've never been so frightened. I had visions of being shot.
Apparently, once they had it out, they'd gotten quite well, and I can't help thinking that the underlying tension only enhanced both McClane's and Eastwood's performances.
The least you can do is take off your hat.
I haven't got time for that.
It's a fun western, although it bombed at the box office. But that did not stop Eastwood from introducing Siegel to a book that he had been reading and was interested in converting to film.
Help me.
To say that The Beguiled would be a departure in style for Eastwood would be an understatement. What is not in doubt, though, is that had he not convinced Siegel to read the book, the film would probably never have been made. Eastwood is unsure on whether the Southern Gothic thriller set at the time of the American Civil War would make a great movie, and it's only when Siegel assured him that he was confident that after a few rewrites, that the film would become one of the more intriguing westerns of the 70s, alongside Robert Altman's McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
Take off his pants. Yanks have tails. Sara, stop that nonsense.
In the film, Eastwood plays a wounded cavalry officer who is rescued by a young girl and taken to an isolated girls' school in Mississippi. When he recovers, he starts to take advantage of the vulnerable woman, which leads to an atmosphere of resentment and ultimately true horror. Siegel loved the film, but unfortunately, it wasn't the kind of Western audiences had come to expect from Eastwood, and it failed to resonate at the box office, despite some great notices.
If the studio doesn't get behind your picture, you might just well not make it. They didn't understand the picture too. So the picture was a colossal flop. If it had been released properly, we would have won the Cannes Film Festival, we would have won the Venice Film Festival, but they were too greedy.
The film was later remade in 2017, with Nicole Kidman, Kirsten Dunst, and Colin Farrell taking on the Eastwood character.
She's waiting for something. You sure? She says guys been striking out all night.
The 70s were a frantic time for Eastwood, and in the same year he would direct his first ever movie, the psychological thriller Play Misty for Me, about an obsessed, deranged fan, played by Jessica Walter, who won't take no for an answer. It was a fatal attraction of its time, and arguably even a better film than the 80s smash hit.
You ever find yourself being completely smothered by somebody?
There's no escape in passion.
On hand also, and on his first ever official acting assignment, was Don Siegel, playing a bartender in a cameo.
Oh, yeah? Cry bastard.
Fool's ploy, my man. Fool's ploy.
Once again, when Clint needed him, Siegel was more than willing to lend a hand, and the film won some rave notices for his first-time director. Then came the film that changed both of their careers.
Clint Eastwood, Detective Harry Callahan. You don't assign him.
Stop!
You just turn him loose.
Once again for Dirty Harry, it was Eastwood who approached Siegel when he was first handed 3 drafts of the script. Not only did Siegel agree to produce and direct, it was his idea to set the film in San Francisco, and not New York, where the script was originally set, so as not to clash with their recent hit, Coogan's Bluff. Dirty Harry was originally written for Frank Sinatra, and after he pulled out, the film was then offered to Burt Lancaster, Steve McQueen, and Paul Newman, who himself suggested Eastwood.
Why do they call you Dirty Harry?
Well, that's one thing about our Harry. Doesn't play any favorites. Harry hates everybody.
The film's villain, Scorpio, was based on the real-life Zodiac killer, and actor Andrew Robinson was so convincing in the role that he received death threats. Robinson would go on to star in Siegel's bank heist drama Charlie Varick a couple of years later, but claimed that his career was forever tainted by this role.
Drop the gun, freaks!
The film's opening shootout is iconic, forever cementing Dirty Harry as one of the most popular movie heroes of all time.
Don was a guy who could get a lot of film, a lot on film with very little in the way of budgets. And by watching him, I tried to grab that. Now, I don't shoot quite as lean as Don, but at the same token, Don was a guy who knew exactly, he had to plan everything. He knew exactly what was going to be shot, and he would do no more.
It's a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
The famous "Do you feel lucky" punk dialogue was written by John Milius, and when Clint walks over to the hapless would-be robber, played by Albert Popwell, you can spot a certain movie being played at the local theatre in the background. Dirty Harry was a huge hit, influencing cop movies ever since, and spawned 4 sequels, of which curiously Eastwood only directed one, Sudden Impact, in 1983.
Go ahead. Make my day.
At the time, the film was criticised for promoting police brutality and taking a right-wing approach to crime. Siegel, though, denied that either he or Eastwood intentionally set out to make a film with such a bias, and stressed his own liberal views, in contrast to Eastwood's more Republican leanings.
This rifle might make a nice souvenir, but it's inadmissible as evidence.
And who says that?
It's the law.
Well, then the law is crazy.
Eastwood and Siegel would take a lengthy break from one another before their final collaboration. In that time, Eastwood forged ahead with a series of films that established him as one of the decade's biggest stars, while also making a name for himself as a director with real significance, with one of the best westerns ever made, The Outlaw, Josie Wells.
Man, he's got to do something for a living these days.
Dying ain't much of a living, boy.
Siegel, meanwhile, made an impression with a series of thrillers, including cult favourite Charlie Varick, The Black Windmill with Michael Caine, and most significantly, gave John Wayne a fitting send-off with The Shootist, although Siegel had to tread lightly around the Duke.
He was unmanageable, very assertive and very physical, very loud, very profane. So I decided the following morning I was going to go and see him and tell him that I can't work this way. When I freeze, I have to work loose. And he was really, felt more concerned that we hadn't gotten along.
John Wayne gives the most remarkable performance of his career.
I'm a dying man, scared in the dark.
As he recreates the final days of the man they called the Shootist.
It had been 25 years since Siegel had last visited Alcatraz Island, when he was researching prisons for his landmark film, Right in Cell Block 11. For Eastwood, it had only been 3 years since he appeared in the same location for the climactic scene in the second Dirty Harry sequel, The Enforcer. Escape from Alcatraz would be a fitting end to Siegel and Eastwood's collaboration. Based on a real-life escape, the film also featured Patrick McGoohan as a cold-hearted prison warden.
No one has ever escaped from Alcatraz, and no one ever will.
The star and director did, however, have a falling out over which production company the film would be released under. But finally, they agreed to release it under Eastwood's own Malpaso, under Paramount. The film was a huge success, both at the box office and with critics.
Well, I always knew crime would pay.
And Quentin Tarantino has since held it as Siegel's finest film. It concluded a director-star collaboration that was unique in that it led to the star to become one of the most celebrated directors in Hollywood in his own right. A double Oscar winner who was consistently able to draw the best talent and make his pictures on budget, on time, and without fuss. And he learned to do it with one of the finest technical directors that ever lived. Siegel himself would go on to direct just 2 more movies until he chose to retire at the ripe old age of 70. One of those movies was the comedy heist drama Rough Cut, starring the other superstar of the decade, Burt Reynolds.
I've wanted to work with Don for a long time, and Clint Eastwood is my best friend. And he's been hiding him from me for years, and I couldn't get to him. And now that Clint has gone off on his own and doing films on his own, it just worked out that way, that he was free. And Clint has been telling me for a couple of years, you two guys would really get along great together, and it sort of worked out that way.
Eastwood himself would win the second of his 2 Best Director Academy Awards at the age of 74 for $1 Million Baby, following his wins for The Unforgiven.
It's a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he's got, and all he's ever gonna.
Without Don Siegel, Clint Eastwood's directing style might have been very different. The stripped-down action, the fast-paced shooting schedules, these were all lessons learned from Siegel. Even decades later, Eastwood still acknowledges Siegel's influence.
I wish he was here. He was one of the greatest directors.
Yeah, he was.
But you learn a lot from him, so he had a great disciple.
When you watch a Clint Eastwood film today, you're also watching the ghost of Don Siegel at work. The student became the master, but he never forgot his teacher.
Well, it sure beats hell out of working for them. Thanks for the plug.
What are friends for?